Hey everybody, we got another video. Today we want to talk about validation. I'm going to probably make it quick, but it's something that's really important and it's been on my heart lately and just wanted to talk about it. It's a concept that a lot of times we skip over, we don't mention enough, and at the same time is one of the more core, crucial, important things that matters in mental health, especially when we are cultivating healthy self-identity, self of sense, or sense of sense of self, um, with young people as they're growing up and they're developing. So, if you don't know me and this is your first video, my name is TJ Brumler. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of South Carolina. I've been doing this work around 20 years. My background involves a lot of different settings and a lot of different types of individuals across the developmental spectrum. But the primary work that I have done over my career is with teens and adolescents. So middle, high school, right? From like 12 to early adulthood, 19, 20 years old. And one of the things I really think in the programs that I have worked in that are most successful, it's not magic, but it's not easy at the same time. Is one of the things that make us the most successful with helping create a safe space for kids is simply validating what they're going. I made a reel recently about this and said, if you were raised in a house where you heard messages like "Stop crying, it's not that bad," "You're not that hurt, put some dirt on it," things like that, we think those messages are just innocuous. They're not that big of a deal when we tell kids. It's really a lot of times it's because we don't have time to sit with it. We got stuff to do. We're moving on. Or maybe we didn't learn as children what validation. But over time, if we continue to learn those lessons and we continue to teach kids these lessons, we are teaching through repetitions and these microdosing of what you're feeling doesn't matter. Your experiences aren't valid or they're not important enough for me. My emotions aren't safe to share. When I use my voice, when I speak up and say what I need, I'm learning that I'm met with that's not real. If you play that tape all the way through, and as an adulthood, you've learned that over and over and over and over and over, you're left with an adult who maybe doesn't even trust their gut instinct, their own intuitions, their own feelings. They don't feel comfortable asking for what they need. Now, what kind of relationships is that adult likely to wind up in? They're likely to be more susceptible to be with a partner who does not do those things, who does not put their needs first, and they may end up not being able to speak up and ask. Another reason this is really important is when kids or anybody feel seen, heard, they also feel safe and they can feel more connected. We have a lot of times when we as adults try to have a hard conversation with a child. We want to ask them yes or no questions. We want to get straight to the hard conversations. Why did you do that? And solution focused kinds of things. We want to fix the problem. However, when we invalidate what a kid is feeling, a lot of times they get stuck in this lower part of the brain because they're not feeling safe in that interaction. And then we're trying to talk to them from our higher levels of our brain, our cortex, and they are still stuck down here in the limbic or even lower regions in the brainstem part of their brain. And so we're fighting biology, trying to have conversations with the part of their brain that is not even online right now. And think about what kinds of frustrations, what kind of framework, I'm sorry, what kind of outcomes that could lead to. Usually they're not that good. So think of an example. Let's say you've got a young person that's in school, um, and they come home from a day at school and they talk about how every friend that they had that today, no, maybe I was at lunch and all of my friends were sitting at other tables and nobody spoke to me. I'm an adult. I'm coming home from work, and what I hear kids tell me a lot of times is they get messages from other adults in their life, parents, just whoever, that, "Oh, honey, well, I'm sure they'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm sure they were busy." Or one of the worst is like, "You know what? And you're almost out of high school. You're almost out of middle school. In a couple of years, you won't even remember those people. This isn't even going to be that big of a deal." And again, don't just think about what you mean, but think about how that young person, think about how their brain could interpret that. What I just told my mom, my dad, my teacher, my mentor, my coach, what I just shared with them was important to me, and they said it didn't matter. That's the core message they're hearing back. So what's another way that we can do that? Step one would be to notice and try to name it. Is I can, imagine that must be really frustrating, or that must have felt really hurtful. You probably felt really alone, or just ask like, and how did that feel? And notice your tone. This isn't in the textbook, but notice your tone, because we can say the same sentence 5 different ways and it sounds a whole lot different. That must have been really hard. Oh, it must have been really hard, or very different. And kids can pick up on tone. So notice it, name it, and just see, if you can check in with how the actual person was. And then the second one is kind of like normalize the feeling. Like, if that happened to me, I probably would have felt sad. I probably would have felt lonely. I would have probably felt really awful if my friends that I normally sit with at lunch weren't with me that day. Given, did that happen to you? What you are describing makes a whole lot of sense. Just normalize what they're telling you and how they tell you it feels. Now, let's say that in that example, they were so mad that they ended up saying something about that friend getting in trouble at school. All right, I don't know. Just imagine this is your kid and that happened and something, a behavior came out of it that caused them to get in trouble. You can still do all these steps of validation and come back to correction or consequence. Honey, I know that you must have felt really sad or really lonely or really upset or really angry or really frustrated. And, I think if anybody went through that, I know if I went through that, I would have felt that way too. Maybe offer space for more processing if they want to share more. Another great kind of just pro tip is just, what else would you like to share with me about that? What else do I need to know about what happened today? And just listen. Don't feel the need to correct. Start with connection, and then we can move into correction. After we've shared all this, and we still need to talk about what happened and how we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. We still have to move forward because we have to make things right. I also want to normalize that there's probably a lot of adults that are watching this video who grew up in an environment where your feelings and your emotions and your needs were not validated. And it's really hard, sometimes impossible, to give what we haven't been given or what we haven't learned. And in fact, when we are raised in an environment where we didn't get it, you're parenting the best you can with what you've learned. Because if you're watching this video, it tells me you probably turned out pretty well and you're probably an amazing parent, or you wouldn't care about any of the content like this, or other people who make similar content. So please first just give yourself some grace if this is something that you're not doing on a regular basis. And at the same time, you can still learn. Like every day we can learn a new tool or improve on a tool that we already have or a skill that we already have to be better at doing things like this for our kiddos. So dig more into validation. Ask, if you're watching in the comments, drop, what's something that somebody says to you that feels really invalidating or really validating. Like, let's learn from each other. That's one of the coolest things we do from kids. A lot of times we'll have them make their own lists of what are things that you want to hear from your parents that are validating. And it's cool to see the differences in their responses. So if you would like a copy of that list, I have one that are like the top 10 from the kids I've worked with. You can just, send me a message, write me a message in the comments, drop your email or email me at tj@tjrumler.com. Put validating statements in the subject line. I'll send it to you. Would love to share that resource with you. So thank you all for everything that you're doing to try to improve the lives, the mental health, the well-being of our kids and our community. I believe that we heal together. So let's continue to do that work together. Thank y'all.